Hey, what's up, everybody? So I tried to do a quick video on this yesterday and totally beefed it, so just decided to go do a quick live stream today and have a quick chat about the shakeups over at WB/DC with the announcement of Peter Gunn and Peter Safran is his name, I believe. Uh, those two taking over his leadership for DC on the cinematic side. And well, I have some opinion. I want to get into a bigger discussion about things too, but also, right off the bat, I guess I'll say I'm excited for this decision because I think after looking, I wasn't familiar with Peter Safran. Apparently, he worked with James Gunn on the Suicide Squad, produced for him, and but what really interested me was his early work, one which was Rocket Man. If anybody remembers that one, right? Yeah, Rocket Man. Some like general comedy, I think from the early 2000s, but also Buried with Ryan Reynolds, and that was the one where he's literally buried alive in a coffin. The whole film takes place like inside the coffin. It was pretty inventive, and I really enjoyed the film too. I thought it was pretty creative. Kept the story going for obviously a limited scope of a film. So you got two guys who have worked together. Obviously, a lot of people know James Gunn from Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad movies, and so you have two guys who have a comedy background, a strong comedy background, in particular a dark comedy background. They both kind of have a wry sense of humor, which obviously got Gunn in trouble a few years ago, but to his success and to his credit, he's bounced back stronger than ever. Um, and so I think these two, obviously having worked together, they probably will work well together, hopefully. And I think they have the most important thing to me is that they have a vision, or seemingly a creative vision that also takes into account the craft of what they're doing. Like they give a shit about the artistry. They, they obviously both have had plenty of commercial success, but they tell stories. The fact that James Gunn, for instance, found a way to make the Suicide Squad work, coming off of what was, one of DC's worst films and probably one of the worst superhero films out there in general. I think it says a lot to what he might be able to do with the full scope, with the full toy box available to him, right? With all the characters available to him. And again, this comes along with the news that Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck are back as Batman and Superman. Now, I love both of those guys in those roles. I thought I didn't like the movie so much, the whole Snyderverse direction they were going, but I think it's exciting to have them both back. However, the main point that I would really took away from this week in this news was less to do with the shakeups because we will see how things play out with DC. I heard some commentary based on this news that just got me thinking something else, or got me thinking an interesting point of how we track pop culture nowadays. Um, Obviously, I'm live streaming to YouTube right now. This is kind of the new way we communicate. It's not so much even the days of newspaper critics or your favorite online critics, or you go to a certain website or magazine to find your cultural reviews for your recommendations and your highlights. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people were really ready to crap on Matt Reeves' The Batman and kind of throw it under the bus. I understand that it wasn't the most popular, but it still made almost $1 billion. It might not have done the business that WB or DC wanted it to do. And again, it's an interesting place I find myself in because I actually am excited because I like James Gunn's work. I'm excited for Peter Safran, excuse me. I'm excited to see these guys work together. I'm excited to see what they do with the properties, what they do with the IPs. But I'm also kind of sad because I have to agree. This one another streamer made the point that they'll probably dump the Batman. Again, a third piece of news was that the Batman 2 was pushed back to at least 2025, I believe, as the earliest we'd be seeing it. And they were like, "That's dead. It's dead in the water. It's definitely over. Likely over." I mean, and unfortunately, I don't have a strong argument against that. I think The Batman was one of the best films of the year, and that's just from a purely artistic standpoint. Again, that's why I'm in this interesting middle ground because I think Gunn and Safran obviously have an artistic. They care a lot about the craft, as I mentioned. They have um, it's not going to be Marvel sludge product that we've been getting over the last few years. I'm curious to again, Gunn saved the Suicide Squad IP. Can he do the same for the general DCEU? And that's what they were saying. They're going to lean back into this, especially with Cavill and Ben Affleck being back. They're going to try and revive this DCEU. Black Adam, I haven't seen it, but I've heard that it's supposed to be a soft reboot for the universe, right? Henry Cavill's cameo, and they're confirming he's back in the universe. And cool, I guess. Great, good for Cavill. Affleck, I'm not so sure about, just because I believe the Batman movie with Reeves was supposed to be originally his film, and I don't know. There was a lot of tumultuous pre-production, but my point is what we got, and I'm hopefully gonna get some people. I'm working on a video because I think there's a lot more going on in that film than a lot of people realize and appreciate, and whether or not we get more sequels or not, that is neither here nor there. I think my issue that I wanted to bring up, or that I wanted to address, the idea I wanted to float out there to people, is that, I think the Batman was, I've heard it accused of being woke, or, and Reeves being thrown under the bus as being an Abrams alumni, right? Because they worked together on Cloverfield. And man, I gotta say, from my own opinion, like, Abrams got real bad after Star Trek. That was like his big breakthrough into Hollywood land. Obviously, the Star Wars films he tanked as well, and that was a whole disaster. But I gotta say that, like, I just rewatched all of Matt Reeves' films. After the Batman, I really got into his work. So, being a nerd, I took a deep dive into it, and I don't see the Abrams fingerprints as much as people want to say they are. I think people who have been in the trenches, especially on YouTube, and with all the craziness that's been going on over the last few years, I think they're not seeing a win when they have it. I think the Batman was subtly really kind of the beginning of the ending of the slush that we've been getting. I think, there's a lot more talk, and even since I beefed the video I was trying to do yesterday, I've seen a few more videos pop up saying, like, is this the turning of the tide, and are we going to start getting different types of stories, different types of movies? And I think it is. I think a lot of people are starting to kind of smell that in the wind. So I'm not necessarily first in the door. This isn't breaking news, but I think that there's a lot of people out there that are a little bit of being sore winners, maybe, or just don't realize that they've won, and are overreaching with some of their criticisms of whether it be wokeness in film, or whatever they're saying. I mean, again, it's open to interpretation. I'm open for the discussion. I'm not saying it's not there, but I just don't think it's. I think, drama sells clicks, and I'm not everyone. Everybody does what they got to do, but I just think that we need to make room for better discussion, and chasing an algorithm, and being a quote unquote content creator. Again, it's something that, like, has come into more conversation, like general conversation. I want to feel like the difference between, say, a content creator and a traditional filmmaker, or what this is. I think it's a very cool space, and it's obviously going to be a integral part moving forward of how we interact in general. Obviously, of marketing, of corporations. You already see, it's kind of like the early days of when Twitter and Facebook. I'm not saying it's that big, but it could be. I think it could be, and I think it's gonna influence a lot of how we move forward with our media and pop culture consumption. Not just with film, with a lot of things, but I'm obviously focused on this. And like I was saying, seeing Matt Reeves and the Batman in particular get thrown under the bus, maybe people just, again, to me, I think there's enough in there in that film that should we get another sequel, and the Penguin series, and upcoming supplemental material, whatever it is, I think it would gain a cult following. I think it would grow in popularity. I think a lot of people, once the hype dies down and we're past a few years, and you look back on it, I think you're going to see a lot more people give that film a lot more respect than it's getting right now. We'll see if I'm right. I have a lot of respect for it. And again, maybe I can convince a few other people to take a second look at it. But moving forward, I think it's just something to keep in mind. I want everyone to keep in mind is just who watches the watchers. No, that's a little too serious. But I'm just curious as to how we You know, yeah, it's great that we don't have gatekeepers anymore, but at the same time, I think here I'll put it this way: I think you're starting to see a lot of the same problems that the new media, the front lines, the first generation of new media, these guys. I think you're starting to see them start to fall a little bit prey to what legacy media used to fall prey to, which is ad dollars and business model. They got to make their money. I have no problem with that. But to make the money, you got to create content. To create content, you got to be on air. Isn't that the problem that we had with the 24/7 news cycle to begin with? I remember 10 years ago we were belly aching about that cycle and the effects it was having on the stories we hear, and that's I start hearing the same thing from both ends. I start hearing the same arguments and the same attitudes and the same. So like, I got to ask, what's the use? Like, even if I agree with you, what's the use? Like, what are we doing if we're just going to end up being this, repeating the same mistakes as the past? If we don't learn, what's good is it? So that's all. I'm not trying to like. Again, I think it's easy to throw out terms like grifter, drama merchants, all that. Yeah, man. I mean, again, unfortunately, that's the way that the foundation is based on clicks. It's based on getting attention, and hopefully we can move forward and build it better. I don't know. There's a lot of shifting sands right now, which is very exciting and interesting to see. And yeah, I'm excited to see whatever you want to call it, Web 3.0, and see what happens. But anyway, let me know what you think. Do all the thing with the things and the buttons and the comments and the whatever. Share it. Let me know what you think. I'd be open to discussion. Have a good day. Have fun. Ooh, got a boomer. Boomer alert. Take it easy, guys.